Alright, so it's finally happening. Bo Nickal is finally stepping up to fight a real contender. This is his first fight against a ranked opponent, and he's not taking an easy route either. He's facing Reinier De Ridder, who honestly looks like a second coming of Jerkis Duplessis with his awkward but effective striking and strong grappling base. And let's be real, this is a massive step up for Bo compared to his previous competition. His last fight against Paul Craig, a guy who is known for his jiu-jitsu but also someone who had a shaky track record at middleweight. De Ridder, on the other hand, is a completely different animal, a former two-division champion in one championship, someone who has dominated high-level competition and recently beaten Kevin Holland, which has solidified his spot in the rankings. And I've seen some people defend Bo, saying that he should have more fights before facing this level of competition. I know some people are saying, dude, he's only had 8 professional MMA fights, give him time. And yeah, that's a fair point, but let's not forget, he chose to jump straight into the UFC, the biggest organization in the world, and he's been the one talking about how he's in a different level from anybody else. Well, guess what? Now's his time to prove it, because De Ridder, he's not some regional guy with no experience. He's an established name with real skills in all area. This is the moment where we find out if Bo is really what he say he is, or he's bit off more than he can chew. Either way, this fight is a must watch because it's going to tell us exactly where Bo stands in the middleweight division. Alright, let's break this fight down because I think a lot of people are overlooking just how tough of a matchup De Ridder is for Bo Nickal. I get it, Bo is a hot prospect. He's steamrolling majority of the guys, besides, Paul Craig, and his wrestling pedigree is through the roof. But MMA isn't just wrestling, and De Ridder has all the tools to make this fight a nightmare for him. He brings a completely different set of challenges. Unlike Craig, who's more of a guard player and willing to work off his back, De Ridder is an offensive, top position grappler. He thrives on pressure, chaining together takedowns, and once he gets on top of you, he's relentless with position control and submission. Now, Bo is obviously an elite wrestler, but this isn't just wrestling for jiu-jitsu. It's not that type of matchup at all. De Ridder isn't just looking to pull guard, he's looking to dictate where the fight goes, and he's comfortable in scrambles. If Bo gets a takedown but doesn't establish solid control, De Ridder can sweep, reverse, or even take his back in transition. That's what makes this fight so interesting. Also, size is definitely something that can work in De Ridder's favor here. He's naturally the bigger guy, he's fought at 205 at light heavyweight, and he's used to dealing with the bigger, stronger opponents. Now, Bo, on the other hand, is a natural middleweight. He's a big, powerful athlete, but he's never really had to deal with someone who has the kind of frame and length that De Ridder brings to the table. That's going to play a huge role in a few ways, because size can make a huge difference when it comes to control. Bo is obviously the better pure wrestler, no question about that, but if De Ridder can get him into a clinch situation, especially against the cage, that extra weight and leverage could start wearing on Bo over time. We've seen it happen before with high-level wrestlers who are dominant in open space, can struggle with a bigger opponent that know how to use their weight and position properly. If De Ridder is able to lean on Bo, make him work, force him into those grinding exchanges, it could start to add up as the fight goes on. Now, that is if Bo Nickal even decides to grapple, because in his last fight, he was way more defensive with his wrestling than anything. He wasn't aggressive, hunting down takedowns or anything like we've seen before. He was hesitant, almost like he didn't want to engage in Paul Craig's guard at all, which I get. Craig is a dangerous off his back, but at the same time, we've seen guys like Brendan Allen completely drown Craig on the ground, and even Fluffy Hernandez would have done the same thing. So why is Bo so hesitant? It makes me wonder if he's still figuring out how his wrestling translates at this level. You see, in college wrestling, you take a guy down, ride him out, and that's that. But in MMA against the legit grapplers, that's where things get tricky. You can't just rely on raw athleticism and a strong base. Positioning, submission awareness, and ground and pound setups all matter. Now, if Bo goes into a fight with that same hesitance, it could be a problem because De Ridder isn't going to wait around. He's not a guard puller like Craig. He wants to initiate the grappling, get on top, and work his game from there. And if Bo isn't fully committed to his wrestling, then what's his plan? Because on the feet, neither guy is a polished striker, but Bo is the better athlete, and his explosiveness could be a difference maker in this fight. If he can mix in his striking just enough to keep De Ridder guessing, it'll make his wrestling even more effective. But if he's blindly shooting and De Ridder times it, we could see Bo in some dangerous submission attempts. So no, I don't think this is just going to be a repeat of the Paul Craig fight. this one's got a different dynamic, and it really comes down to who can impose their game first. Because Bo's striking is still a work in progress, but he's at least shown glimpse of explosiveness and natural power. He's got that raw athleticism that lets him close the distance fast, and we've seen him drop guys early, like when he put away Val Woodburn in under a minute. Now, that's not saying much because Woodburn was a short notice replacement and not exactly high level competition, but it does show that Bo carries enough power to get respect on the feet. I mean, he knocked him out. Now, as for De Ridder, his striking has never been his strong suit. If you've seen his fights, you would know he's not out there setting up Chris combos or feigning his way into shots. He's awkward, a little bit stiff, and mainly uses his striking to set up his takedowns. And we've seen him struggle against someone with solid stand-up before. I mean, look at his fight with Anatoly Malikin. Malikin made him look completely lost, rocking him multiple times before finishing him. Now, obviously, Bo isn't as sharp as a striker as Malikin, but the fight exposed a major flaw in De Ridder's game. If he can't get his grappling going, he has no backup plan on the feet. However, Bo doesn't have a ton of stand-up experience either. Sure, he's an elite wrestler with great athleticism, but that doesn't always translate to clean striking. He looks stiff at times, his defensive head movement isn't quite there, and we don't really know how he reacts to getting clipped hard by someone with real power. De Ridder may not be a knockout artist, but if he lands something clean, does Bo panic and shoot a sloppy takedown? Who knows? I think if this fight stays standing, Bo will look more comfortable early on. He's faster, more explosive, and could land something big. But the longer it stays on the feet, the more we can see his striking experience get exposed. If he overcommits or starts getting sloppy, De Ridder could capitalize. So yeah, Bo probably has the advantage in terms of physical tools, but neither guy is great on the feet. And if Bo doesn't find a way to make De Ridder respect his power early, we could be in for a weird, awkward striking battle where it just matters of who makes the first big mistake. And then there's the reach factor. On the feet, neither guy is a great striker, but De Ridder has that natural length advantage. He's awkward, he doesn't have the best boxing, but if he can use his reach to keep Bo at a distance, he might be able to frustrate him and force Bo to make mistakes. We've seen Bo striking, it's explosive, but he's still learning how to manage distance. If he starts lunging in or reaching with his shots, that's where De Ridder can capitalize, whether it's with a counter or a timed takedown of his own. And then there's the cardio factor. We've never really seen Bo in a deep fight before. Most of his fights end early, but if De Ridder fights smart and uses his size to slow the pace, drag Bo into the later rounds, that could be where the size difference really starts to show. But that doesn't mean Bo can't just nuke him early. We've seen plenty of guys where technical inferior strikers catches a guy because they're faster, more explosive, or just have better timing. And Bo is definitely that guy in this matchup. If he lands clean, especially early, De Ridder is gonna feel it. But even with all that being said, I still lean towards De Ridder, not because I think Bo is a fraud or this is some kind of test to expose him. Bo is the real deal. He's just early in his career. De Ridder has been in deep waters, he's fought big guys, he knows how to work through adversity. Bo hasn't really had to do that yet, and this might be that fight where we see what happens when he's in a bad position against a legit grappler who can match his physicality. So yeah, Bo could absolutely catch him early, and if he does, it wouldn't shock me, but I think De Ridder has too many tools, too much size, and just a little too much experience for Bo to run through him. This isn't a fraud check, it's just a fight that makes sense for where Bo is in his development. If he wins, it's a massive statement. If he loses, it just means he's got more work to do.